So I guess I'll get started, and let me introduce myself. My name is Justin Brim. I'm an admissions counselor here with Binghamton University. I've been working here since 2014, and I'm a graduate of a SUNY college, and have also worked in the SUNY system at a number of liberal arts and science colleges, in addition to, of course, Binghamton University. One of the hats I wear is one of the admissions liaisons to the Education Opportunity Program, EOP, as I'll touch base about it and shortly. But once again, thank you all for attending, and I'm going to pass it on to our Senior Assistant Director, Byron.
Hello, everyone. Some of you probably seen me already today as I did the info session this morning. My name is Byron Gittins. I'm the Senior Assistant Director here at Binghamton University. I'm from Queens, New York. I've been at Binghamton now for about almost a year and 4 months. I've been in education now for 11 years. I mean, I have an MBA, so I was in the business world and ended up in education and found that I love it. I love helping students to kind of figure out what their next step is. Prior to Binghamton, I was at University of Maryland, College Park, the state flagship for Maryland. And before that, I was at UConn, the state flagship for Connecticut. So I'm used to these #1 publics, working at these flagship research institutions. I will tell you, this is a great opportunity. Please make sure you're listening to everything Justin says. He's a great liaison for the EOP program. The other thing is, this is a great opportunity for you students to stay in state. You have a great #1 public. I mean, when you think about New York State, it's the largest system of not only public schools when we talk about the high schools, but it is the largest state system when we talk about state universities. There's 64 state schools here. It's not Florida. I recruit in Florida. It's not California, recruited there as well. It's New York State. We have 64 state institutions, and Binghamton's #1. So this is a great opportunity for you to hear some really cool ideas about how to make Binghamton affordable if you do qualify for EOP, or to find out more about the program or how it can benefit you, especially when you have such a cool institution here in our own state. So I will be in the background, as Justin said, answering Q&A. The chat is disabled. You will not be able to chat any questions there. There will be opportunity for you to put anything into the Q&A. If you have admissions questions as well, I'll be able to answer those also.
Thank you so much, Byron. And yes, make sure you send some info into the Q&A. So let's get started. Okay, so once again, everybody, welcome to this overview for the Educational Opportunity Program at Binghamton University, EOP. So a few things I'm going to highlight during this presentation, and I hope you have questions on them as we go through them. And that is, kind of the who, what's, where's, and why in relation to EOP at Binghamton and the admissions process, the application process. And I hope it sparks questions. I hope it sparks interest for those who maybe have yet to apply, or for those who have just applied and are, or kind of trying to figure out how to navigate that process. Then there are some of you who may be more down the line, like third-year high school students or first-year transfer students, and you're thinking more about, looking, may just say in the case of transfers, looking to go from your current college to Binghamton, hopefully, after you complete, just say, maybe your first degree, and want to know a little more about this process. So we'll talk about it. But let's first talk about some what's in regards to EOP. EOP and SUNY, as Byron had mentioned, with SUNY being the largest university system in the country, we have a number of really cool programs. EOP was founded in 1967, so it is over 50 years running. It's a long-standing program that was modeled after the SEEK program in CUNY. So for those who are from the New York City area and are familiar with CUNY and familiar with the SEEK program, EOP is similar, but in the state system. EOP is in SUNY, SEEK is in CUNY. You also hear of College Discovery, also in CUNY, 2-year institutions. And then you also hear for several of the private colleges and universities in New York State, you'll hear of HEOP, or HEOP, as you might hear is the acronym pronounced. And then some of them have some different names, but they all, operate under the similar function and program. So EOP is in SUNY, providing access to college for New York State students who are underserved and under-resourced, both educationally and economically. EOP currently exists on 49 of the 64 SUNY campuses. And there have been, of course, thousands of graduates since its inception going on as EOP alumni to do some amazing things all across the world. To talk specifically about the where when it regards to our EOP at Binghamton University, our Michael V. Boyd EOP at Binghamton was named after Michael V. Boyd, who was the former director of EOP at Binghamton from 1986 to 1994. We currently at our EOP serve 600 students, including about 150 or so new students each fall between first year and transfer students, usually about 130 to 140 first year students, i.e. freshmen. We use the term first year. So if I say first year throughout this presentation, that's who I'm talking about. And then about anywhere from 20 to 30 new transfer students every fall. For transfer students, I'm kind of jumping the gun here. There will be some students who apply as transfers and enroll at Binghamton's EOP in a spring semester, but most students enroll in a fall semester. And our EOP's retention and graduation rates, you've probably heard through several of our sessions going on this weekend and throughout the week, you'll hear a lot about Binghamton's top-notch retention ratio and graduation ratio. What I'm talking about is, to begin with retention ratio, the first to second year or the first year at Binghamton as a transfer, for example, to the following year, and the retention ratio. How much do students feel like they're getting what they expected out of Binghamton, and what ways are Binghamton pleasantly surprising them to offer them even new opportunities and pathways that they didn't even realize about. And obviously that leads into very high retention ratio from those who stay and don't leave or don't get academically dismissed or et cetera. And then of course our very high graduation rates. We have as at a university some of the highest graduation rates in the country for first year students and transfer students. Our 4-year graduation rates at over 70%, which is one of the highest in the country for public universities. So when you actually think about our EOP as well, the retention and graduation rates rival the retention and graduation rates for the entire population at other colleges and universities. So when it comes to who's eligible for EOP, and this is very important when you're assessing if you're interested in applying to EOP in the future, or if you've applied to EOP already, you've probably already done this research. Students have to be New York State residents for at least 12 months prior to enrollment. So that comes into play when we're assessing the eligibility for EOP. These are New York State residents, and students must meet the financial economic requirements based on the State University of New York /EOP. And this is very important as well, and I'll show an example in a quick second. Applicants must show proof of historic economic disadvantage. So the common question that's probably going to come up this cycle is going to be in lieu of the pandemic. And, a lot of people, unfortunately, falling on tough times economically. And because, though, EOPs look at historic economic disadvantage, I'm not ruling out these situations completely, but if it's a case where it's more recent economic hardship, but in relation to SUNY and EOP financial requirements, there wasn't previously, i.e. 2 years or more prior, that might actually be a factor in you maybe not being considered for EOP, as the EOP admissions committee is going to look at historic economic disadvantage. So not just maybe very recent, but also on a historical basis. So we'll get into that a little more later. So to show an example, as I mentioned, when it comes to the EOP and SUNY economic eligibility guidelines for this upcoming 2021 and 2022 academic year, so for those who are applying, just say for the fall of 2021 to enter Binghamton, if these are the maximum amount of total annual income that can be made for a certain household size. And this is for the financial year, anyway, the economic year of 2019. So when you are applying to EOP for fall of 2021, we are going to be asking for economic documentation for the year 2019, 2 years prior. This is similar to the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid. Once again, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself here. But as you probably have noticed, for those who have begun doing the application for the FAFSA, they're asking for the 2021 year, they're actually asking for economic data from 2 years prior for 2019. And that is the same thing with SUNY and EOP. We're going to be assessing for this upcoming year 2 years prior of economic data. So in 2019, what this chart is pretty much saying is, if you are in a household of 4 with 1 or more workers, it doesn't generally, if you are a dependent under someone else, and they're working, they're the bring the most income in or so in the household, or bring the primary source of income. Whoever works in the household outside of yourself, if you are dependent, right, as it says, including head of household, if in a household of four, the maximum total annual income for 2019 could not be more than $48,470. And as it shows down there, for households with more than 8, you just add for each additional person in the household, including the head of household. So we'll get into that a little more, but I just wanted to highlight when it comes to SUNY and EOP economic guidelines for the year 2019, even though it's for this upcoming academic year, this is what we're generally looking at when it comes to see if a student is economically eligible for EOP at Binghamton. Why do students apply for EOP? Well, in the case of freshman applicants, first-year applicants coming out of high school, EOPs look at and consider applicants to that respective college. So at EOP at Binghamton, we're going to be looking at first-year applicants who are not admissible through the general/regular admission process. So if you were just sending in an application and for admission, that's the general application process. You didn't check off EOP or anything else. You just sent in an application, and then your counselors and advisors and such sent in your supporting documents. You got your essays in and everything like that. That's the general admissions process. Based on the number of applicants that Binghamton gets through the general application process, which is pretty much close to a little over 40,000 applicants every single year. Not everybody, of course, is going to be as strong a candidate for admission in lieu of that large applicant pool. So what EOP does is, remember, EOPs look to provide opportunity and access to students coming from underserved economic backgrounds and underserved educational academic backgrounds. So if a student, for example, is not, if a student knows that they're probably not going to be the strongest candidate through the general regular admissions process, they may apply for an opportunity program such as EOP. So as it shows, most first-year applicants to Binghamton were admitted with high school GPAs out of a 100-point scale anyway, between 87 and 92. Now, that's the mid 50%. So that, of course, means 25% of our students who enrolled in our EOP had lower than that, and also 25% of students had higher than that. Now, traditionally, students also, when the SATs or ACTs, standardized test scores, were required, most EOP applicants entered Binghamton who were admitted with scores above 1100 on the evidence-based reading and math, or if there was a composite ACT, it was above 22. But as it shows for 2021, we are standardized test optional. So as Byron and I have been through the reviewing process, we've noticed that a significant amount of our applicants are choosing not to submit test scores, and that's perfectly fine. The way Binghamton sees it is, when we say optional, we truly mean it. We are standardized test optional for 2021, meaning that if you did not want to send your test scores, or you are not able to take a standardized test, testing sites and dates canceled and such, that is perfectly fine. It's not going to be a detriment to your application. It will not be a detriment to your EOP application. Some of you may be thinking, okay, well, I have significantly higher than 92. I might be in the 96 and plus range. Should I even apply to EOP? And the answer is, if you know that you fall within the economic guidelines that were shown earlier, and you are not necessarily sure if you're going to be admissible through the general regular admissions process to Binghamton, yes, apply EOP to Binghamton and let our office make the determination whether we want to keep you in EOP consideration, or we actually think you would be a possible strong candidate for general admissions, and we will move you to the general regular admissions pool. Let us make that determination. So if you're not sure, or you're just not really sure about the general admissions process, and you're economically eligible for EOP, I would say apply EOP. And if you clearly know that you're not going to be a strong candidate for general admissions, and once again, you're economically eligible, then the decision should be easy. You should apply EOP. And once again, we are standardized test optional for 2021. Why do transfer students apply for admission to EOP? Transfer students who apply for EOP have been previously enrolled in an EOP at another SUNY, or they were enrolled at an HEOP, a college discovery, or a SEEK program. at their current or prior college, and they want to continue the services that EOP provides here at Binghamton when they're admitted. Now, the admissions process isn't different when it comes to, recommended or required GPAs for admission and such, and maybe prerequisites based on a certain program. But when it comes to it being enrolled in EOP at Binghamton from a prior college or university, transfer students apply because they are currently or have been in an EOP previously or currently, or an HEOP, seek, or college discovery. And of course, and lastly, most students apply to EOP because they know, they have heard from their counselors, advisors, from their older siblings, from their parents, from their relatives, right? Aunts, uncles, cousins, and more, about the mass benefits, the huge benefits that EOPs provide, including our EOP in Binghamton. Academic support. A lot of it starts with the summer program. All EOPs have summer bridge programs, which help students acclimate to the academic especially, but the kind of cultural and social environment of the school that they're enrolling at. So Binghamton Enrichment Program is our summer program that EOP puts on during the month of July. And it really is to, once again, bridge high school. And this is actually, I have to note, this is for incoming first year students, not incoming transfer students. Transfers do have orientation. It's not like you just kind of are left out there or anything like that, not at all. But as far as preparing for the academic rigor of the institution of Binghamton and the social and cultural environment, first year admits to EOP at Binghamton, just as they are in all the other SUNYs with EOPs, go through a summer bridge program to, once again, bridge that gap between high school and their first semester and year in college at Binghamton. So we do have a great Binghamton Enrichment Program. We also have a lot of really great support that is provided through our EOP Tutorial Center. So academic coaching and advisement, and of course, academic support, supplemental support that's available. There is a National Honor Society called Chi Alpha Epsilon, and this is specifically for students. In the case of EOP, all the EOPs have a Chi Alpha Epsilon chapter, which is a National Honor Society based on strong academic achievement. So as I mentioned, remember once again, this is all tying back. Remember that early slide that said the retention and graduation rates of our students in our Binghamton, our Michael V. Boyd EOP are rival the retention and graduation rates of students admitted through the whole population of other colleges and universities. So a lot of our students are invited to take part in this Chi Alpha Epsilon National Honor Society every single year. There is career advisement. So there is summer employment opportunities directly with EOP, like, for example, assisting in the Binghamton Enrichment Program. You get career advisement not just from EOP, but fellow EOP alumni. We have 140,000 plus alumni, Binghamton alumni, all across the world, many who were graduates of our Michael Boyd EOP, and they give back to their current students. So when it comes to being able to be mentored by alumni or upper division students at Binghamton in EOP, these are all possibilities. They have information sessions, career clusters, job and internship fairs, even in a virtual format. So let's not lose sight of the fact that just because we're in the midst of pandemic, this support does not go away. These opportunities do not go away. They're actually, in many cases, might actually have a bump because there might be some recruiters and companies that it might have been a little tougher to get to Binghamton if they were just, say, all the way on the West Coast, right? They might make it a couple of times a year. In the virtual format, they can meet with us every month. So do know that there are really unique support opportunities that are benefits of being an EOP student at Binghamton. And of course, financial support. So there is a scholarship through our center, through our Michael V. Boyd EOP. There is, for those who are in foster care, EOPs across SUNY are part of the Foster Care Youth Initiative, where you can receive additional support and funding during your time in undergraduate academic studies through EOP. If you are currently or have been since the age of 13, some type of, either fully or somewhere within that time, you were in foster care, you can receive additional financial funding and support. I want to be clear on the fact that EOPs and like-minded programs, they're not financial support programs. We are serving underserved students economically and how that will apply down the line to your financial aid applications and funding your education, you can expect to get, in many cases, the maximum amount of funding that is available through grants and loans and just say work study programs federally and through the state. You can generally expect that. Of course, you got to make sure you get your applications in the timely manner. But EOPs, while they do provide some additional financial support in the form of a grant that can help with things like textbooks and additional grant monies, you need to understand that the chances of a free ride or full ride, sorry, free ride, a full ride to a university through an EOP is very, very rare. It's mostly that while there will be additional support tying into what your federal and state aid will provide you as an economically disadvantaged student, you also need to know that EOPs do not serve as primarily financial support programs. They are more academic, social, career, and cultural support programs for our students. Just highlighting once again some of the really unique support services that are available to students. And of course, transfer students, you'll know this because in your EOPs or like-minded programs currently, you are receiving personal counseling, academic advisement, of course, and coaching, financial aid. Like I said, modest financial aid, additional grants that are available through EOPs and like programs, but not a fully financial support program. It's mostly mentoring, coaching, academic advisement, career prep, counseling, and more. Let's not forget about the benefits of being an EOP post-undergrad. So even after you receive your undergraduate degree, in the case of this student, for example, they got his Bachelor of Science in nursing, went on to the nursing program, but just say he wants to go and get his Doctor of Nursing practice. Just say he wants to go and get a master's in another field, or he may want to go to medical school. EOPs, just for example, can provide additional support post-undergrad. So you can get fee waivers and or fee reductions for GREs and MCATs and LSATs and other standardized tests, just as some of you may have if you did take an SAT or ACT, you received a fee waiver or reduction for the ACT or the SAT if you were able to take that. I know a lot of people weren't, so in course Binghamton understands that. There is a graduate opportunity program if you continue on within SUNY. So just say you stay at Binghamton for your graduate program. We have, for example, a Master's of Public Health. How timely a program, right? So if you wanted to stay and get your MPH, get a Master's of Public Health, and you were an EOP at Binghamton for undergrad, you can continue on and get graduate funding and graduate programs and support through the SUNY GOP. There are First Professional Study, the EDPS, the Economically Disadvantaged First Professional Study programs and funding that students can take advantage of. And of course, there are also federal TRIO programs. You might hear of this because, as Byron had mentioned, from his experience and background with UConn and University of Maryland, there are federal opportunity and access programs, predominantly through the TRIO programs, that you can be eligible for post-undergrad. Just say if you're at EOP at Binghamton, this is a state program, a New York State program, but then you could be eligible for federal programs through TRIO in other cases, especially after you complete your undergraduate degree. Before I move on to the application, I'll talk a little more about the application process for EOP students. For those who know that they are applying to EOP, have applied to EOP, or are going to apply to EOP. What if you've determined that either previously or during the session, you've determined that you are not going to be eligible for EOP? Just say maybe you looked at that economic chart and you said, oh, no, definitely. I mean, it's not like we're wealthy or anything, but I know my family is not going to qualify for, I'm not going to qualify for EOP based on my household economic situation, right? So just say that's the case. Before I move on to continuing with EOP and the benefits and the application process, I do want to highlight about what if you're not EOP? That doesn't mean, though, that you can't qualify for additional support and services that are out there. So if you've already applied to Binghamton and you've already got your application status portal, you've logged in and you see something, say you applied to EOP initially, and you see something at the bottom that says EOP opt-out. If you know that you're not going to qualify for EOP, either academically, but mostly economically, like I said, leave the academic portion to us. But if you definitely know you don't qualify economically, but you still want, of course, be in the general admissions process as an applicant, make sure you fill out that and complete that EOP opt-out. You can say, yes, I want to opt out of EOP and be placed in the general admissions process. If you had initially, through the common application, if you used the common application to apply to EOP, if you submitted first-year applicants, also said that you wanted to be considered for early action. Now, early action, the deadline passed for early action, but if you had submitted your application prior to or on November 1st, and you had also checked off early action, while EOP trumps early action. So right now you would be an EOP applicant. If you opted out of EOP, you can request to be moved back into the early action pool. And while we have still a few weeks before early action ends, about 3 weeks or a month, you could potentially still be reviewed for that. So if you've already applied as a first-year applicant and you're pretty clear that you're not going to be eligible for EOP, make sure you do the EOP opt-out form and say no, and we'll put you in the general admissions process. If you had applied early action also initially, and we made you an EOP applicant because you had also applied EOP, so you did both, and you can't be both at the same time. EOP students, as we'll get into later, the review takes a while because we're looking at not just academics, but also finances and economics. So when we look at that, it does take a little while and it does push past early action. So, but if you had initially applied both, and we have you in the EOP pool now, but you do actually want to be in the general admissions pool, but still be early action, there may be some cases where you can request it and send that information to us, and we will see if we can put you back into the early action pool. What if you've been admitted to Binghamton? Yay, congratulations. What if you've been admitted and you're really considering Binghamton, but you do know that you are still economically eligible or economically underserved? You know that you are just, say, a first generation college student, meaning that you will be the first of your family, immediate family, to graduate with an undergraduate degree program in the near future. So just say you're a first generation college student, you are economically underserved, and like perfect example, somebody who applies EOP, we determine is a better fit for general admissions process, and later on that you actually get admitted as a general population student, right? General admission student, but you still were economically eligible, first generation, met the financial criteria, but now you're admitted through the general process. You might be thinking, okay, now what other support do I get? Now Binghamton offers, of course, tons of support, but do know that there's some specific ones I want to highlight. I mentioned the federal TRIO programs. There is a student support services program that Binghamton has that provides a lot of similar support to students at Binghamton, similar to EOP at Binghamton. So this is a program that you can be eligible for. You can actually be sign up for, apply for, and actually be enrolled in after you've been admitted to Binghamton. It includes a summer bridge program as well. It includes additional support that can carry on, of course, during Binghamton, and then, of course, post Binghamton or post undergrad, even if you stayed at Binghamton. A lot of really cool programs, including the McNair Scholars Program, another federal TRIO program. So you would find this federally. This is across many of different states and territories, not just in New York State. But if you're at Binghamton, we also have a TRIO SSS and a TRIO McNair Scholar Program. We have student support funds, especially for students who are economically underserved and economically eligible through our Harper Edge program. There are undergraduate research opportunities through First Year Research Immersion, FRI, our Humanities, Arts, and Social Sciences Source Project, as well as the Summer Research Immersion program. We have the Summer Scholars and Artists program. These are all unique research programs that are available to students who are at Binghamton, but were or were not admitted through EOP. So even if you were not EOP, that doesn't mean the support ends and you can't get the additional support that you are either hoping for or you definitely know that you could benefit from in order to develop in course and develop the transferable skills that will be needed for the workforce and for other really unique programs post undergrad. And for those who are transferring into Binghamton, there are the Bridges to Baccalaureate program for several of our community colleges within SUNY that do have opportunities for research that you can work with Binghamton faculty and staff, and then go from your associate's degree program to Binghamton to complete your undergraduate program. As I mentioned, it says 48, but I apologize. It's actually 49, as I mentioned earlier. EOPs are offered at 49 of the 64 SUNYs. A lot of our transfer students that are in an EOP currently or another EOP, you want to focus on the SUNY transfer paths. It's recommended that you complete at least 24 college credits after high school. So it doesn't include APs and such. It would be college credits after you complete high school before transferring. Many students that do transfer into our EOP do have completed an associate's degree program, just say from a SUNY 2-year or a CUNY 2 or 4-year. They've actually completed 2 years of coursework before transferring to our EOP. And then there is a transfer verification form. So if you are pretty sure you're applying to EOP for Binghamton and you want to enroll and you're currently at a SUNY EOP, or you're at a SEEK in CUNY, or you're at an HEOP in one of the private schools and you want to transfer to us, the transfer verification form is going to be very important because you're going to need to get your advisor or director of your current program at your current college to complete that form and get it and send it to us. So when you're ideally admitted to Binghamton, we can have you on file and continue on your EOP services here at Binghamton. There are some cases where a SUNY does not have an EOP, or a private school does not have an HEOP. There may be some additional economic information that's required of you for us to get a sense if you were economically eligible for Binghamton and EOP when you enroll here. So applying to Binghamton, now we did have students of transfer applicants that can apply for the spring, but most students are going to apply either first year or transfer for the fall. So if you're applying for fall 2021, the deadline to submit your application, if you haven't already, is January 15th for first year applicants. And if you're applying as a transfer, it's going to be March 1st. And there are a few exceptions as it highlights here based on when you're choosing to apply. If you are a fall 2022 student, or if you're a spring 2022 transfer hopeful applicant, these deadlines will be very similar. These exceptions will be very similar in 2022, just as they are for 2021. So yes, we encourage you to apply now if you haven't already this upcoming fall. You can use the SUNY Common or Coalition application. You want to pick one of them. You don't have to send 2 or all 3. You can pick one of these applications and you can submit your application to EOP at Binghamton. You are going to want to complete the FAFSA, as I mentioned earlier, the free application for federal student aid. And if you do know that you're not going to qualify or not be able to submit any an applications for federal student aid, so this is like Pell, these are federal direct loans and such, the federal work study. If you know that you're not going to qualify for federal student aid, that does not mean that that as a New York State resident, you won't qualify for New York State aid. And EOP, as a New York State program, does provide, as I mentioned earlier, some additional financial support and funding for students in the program as New York State residents. So if you are a New York State resident, you want to submit, if you're not submitting the FAFSA, you want to submit the New York State DREAM Act, which is available to review and assess eligibility for New York State funding. This is tuition assistance programs such as TAP, and this is, as I mentioned, EOP funding that could be available to you as an EOP admit. So the FAFSA or the New York State DREAM Act, you want to make sure that after you've done your admissions application, you want to make sure you get on top of submitting the FAFSA or the New York State DREAM Act. We are going to be asking, and I'm talking about first year applicants here when it comes to academic materials. If you are a transfer applicant applying, of course, for EOP, same thing financially, you're going to want to submit the FAFSA or the New York State DREAM Act for funding. But academically, we are going to be looking at official high school transcripts from any high school you've attended. It's awesome if you've attended a couple of high schools and your current high school has all the grades and stuff from your prior schools on their current transcript. That's awesome. You just need to get the transcript from that one, your current high school. But if you've attended several high schools, we generally need official transcripts from all those high schools. Most will come in with just one high school. So we need official high school transcripts sent from your school counseling office or your advisor, whoever has access to that official transcript coming from the high school. We generally, once again, historically, ask for SAT and or ACT scores that could have been sent from the official testing agency, or as to not spend more money. So once again, providing access, self-reporting you could have done. But once again, kind of flashing lights here. For 2021, we are standardized tests optional. If you have taken a SAT and or ACT, and you are confident your scores, you like your scores, and you want Binghamton to know those scores, you can self-report your scores through your application status portal, or you can have them sent from the official testing agency, College Board, ACT, whatever. If you did not take a test because you couldn't, or you took one and you weren't pleased with your scores, that is perfectly fine as well. And you can make sure that in the application status portal, when you apply to Binghamton and we say, hey, thanks for applying, log on to this portal so you can check the status of your application and see what's necessary to complete. There will be a test optional form that will be there that you will need to complete that says to us that you're going to self-report or submit test scores, or you're not. So even if you are not going to send test scores, make sure that when you apply to Binghamton, you complete this test optional form to let us know that you're not going to be sending or self-reporting scores. Or on the flip side, if you are, that's not the end of the road. You need to fill out that form to let us know that you are going to be submitting scores. When applying to Binghamton, once again, as a first-year applicant, so I'm going to delve into the first-year process a lot more right now, i.e. freshmen once again. If you're applying, you want to complete the SUNY or Binghamton EOP financial information form. So this is the form that gives us some basic information on you as an individual economically, if you are a dependent, if you are an independent student, if you are just say are a ward of the state or court, if you are in foster care, if you receive TANF, TANF, if you receive temporary assistance for needy families, if you are in public assistance, if your family, one of your your parents or guardians receives child support from another parent, or non-custodial parent or guardian. So yeah, that's the term I was trying to use, custodial parent. If custodial parent or guardian receives child support from your non-custodial parent, all this information is going to be needs to be completed on the EOP financial information form. When I say SUNY or Binghamton financial information form, we are through SUNY, we accept and are part of the SUNY EOP financial information form. So the large majority of you, those who submit the SUNY or the common application as first-year applicants, are going to need to complete the SUNY EOP financial information form. If you are applying through the coalition application, you will be using the Binghamton specific EOP financial information form. It's pretty much the same form, but for coalition applicants specifically, you would be using Binghamton's form, not SUNY's. For SUNY and common applicants, you will use the SUNY EOP financial information form. That includes an EOP specific essay. So in addition to your one essay that you're submitting for admission, right? For general admission, right? You're submitting through the SUNY supplemental the essay, or through the common app or coalition app, you have the topics that you choose or a topic of your choice. You have your essay completed, you submitted it. To be eligible or to be reviewed for EOP, we are also asking for an EOP specific essay, which includes topics relating to motivation for pursuing college, circumstances based on academic performance. So once again, going back to the general admissions process, where a student who applies EOP, ideally, of course, is pretty confident that they may not or probably won't be the strongest candidate for general admissions. The EOP essay, you might actually allude to that a little. Maybe you showed growth between 9th and 11th grade and you're hitting your stride now, but maybe in the first year, you didn't really do as well as your, in relation to what your abilities and opportunities are, but you, once again, are showing an upward trend. But because that's reflecting in your overall GPA, you may want to allude to that in the EOP essay. Say, I know I might not be eligible for general admissions, but I do have the will, drive, ambition, and the skills that are eligible to be successful in college, and I want to highlight that. And I'm showing growth now. I'm just using an example. but these are topics that are in the EOP specific essay. So as part of the EOP financial information form, there is an EOP specific essay that you do have to complete as well. And this, for those who submit the SUNY or the Common application, as it shows here, this is a supplement to the Common app, but SUNY, the form the online form is very similar. This is how you get started with logging in to complete your EOP financial information form. This is a sample. This is the worksheet. So the financial information form is online. You complete it and submit it online. But just as an example, this is the worksheet, which highlights, like, it looks very similar to this, just in an online format. So as I show, you see it's going to ask some information about your economic circumstance. If your family owns a business, you need to report that. You need to report that and the value of that business. It asks for that. If you own a house, if your family owns a house, if your family owns real estate, if you have, in addition to your custodial parent has remarried, and that person, so your step parent, for example, while maybe not the custodial parent, they are living in the household and they work, they need to be reported. You need to report them. This is all information that will be on the EOP, the SUNY EOP financial information form, whether the SUNY or Binghamton financial information form. This is information that you have to report because it gives us a better sense of your economic situation. If you don't, if your family is not working, or you don't have anybody working in the household, or they're working but do not file taxes, we'll get into that in a minute. You need to report, they need to report that they don't file taxes. And if whatever income is entering into the household during the 2019 year, as I mentioned, we're looking 2 years prior, this is information that needs to be reported on a financial information form. Now, in addition to the financial information form, like when you complete that form, it's going to say, okay, your custodial parent received child support, or you are or you work and you pay taxes, you file taxes for 2019. Or you own a business, so your family owns a business. So in addition to your federal tax form 1040, as it highlights here, that assesses household income, there are specific numbered and lettered schedules that do highlight business income for your family's business that you need to submit. Common ones I've seen: parent drives a cab or a taxi. Parent does childcare, babysitting, actually maybe owns their own daycare, whatever the case may be, that they are self-employed. Parents who are freelance artists or freelance workers, right? Parents who, I've seen parents owning laundromats, parents owning, restaurants, whatever the case may be. In the case of, as I mentioned, parents that own real estate, your family owns real estate, there are federal tax forms, schedules, that attach to the main tax form 1040 that you need to submit. So this information are eligibility documents that need to be submitted along with your financial information form. So let me take a quick pause here. If a lot of you are like, wow, this is a lot of information, it is. You have to put in perspective that there are a number of applicants across the state that are going to be applying for access to college and the opportunity programs such as EOP. Because remember the mission of EOP, it is providing access to students who in a traditional general admissions process would not have had that opportunity. So knowing that there are students out there that are eligible for these opportunities, we need to assess this to get a sense if you would not just be just a good fit for the program itself, but are eligible to take advantage of this opportunity in relation to other students that are out there. So this is the information economically and academically that we're going to need to get a sense of your eligibility. So if your parent does not file taxes, so parents in the house but does not file taxes, there is a federal verification of non-filing that they have to submit. Now, if your parent works but does not file taxes, that's where a notarized letter from an employer, for example, needs to be submitted. W-2s as well, because there are cases where there are your parent or parents might actually work, right, but receive income, but do not actually file taxes. The employer may provide them with a W-2, but we need to see that W-2. In addition, we need to have a notarized letter from the employer which states, yes, your parent works at this organization, company, whatever, and this is how much they received over the course of the year. Because if not, how are we going to determine your economic eligibility and how much income is coming into the household on a given year? So this is an example of the 2019 Federal Tax Form 1040. So as it highlights here, you'll see names of the persons filed taxes, right? If their parents are married and filing jointly, or they're married and filing separately. If they live in the household and they work, or and they file taxes, we need to see those tax forms. You should be a dependent under your the person that files taxes. There are some random cases where you as a student are not a dependent under the person who is the primary source of income, custodial parent as such, and we need to see documentation of why that is. So like I said, if it's the case of married filing jointly, we need to see that other non-custodial parents or the other parents, the spouse, we need to see their income as well. If there's a case where these are two different households, you're on someone else's taxes, but you're living under the support of one other person, your custodial parent, we need to see some documentation. If it's not child support, we need to see some documentation which shows that, yes, I'm under that person's taxes, but that income is not supported, or whatever the case may be that really highlights your household. We need to see documentation of that, ideally in a notary format. But I understand that in this cases, in the midst of a pandemic, it might be hard to actually get notarized letters and such. So please reach out to us and we will work with you and figure out steps, whether it's something that your counselor can assist with providing, or your advisor, or some other sort of way. We will figure it out, but you have to let us know. So this is an example of the Federal Tax Form 1040. So this should be a very common form that many of our EOP applicants learn about, familiar with, and do submit to us. And that's the second page of it. I don't know if you can see there. It might be a little tough to see it, but you'll see information about schedules. If there are additional schedules as part of your federal taxes. So once again, that states business income, real estate, investments, capital gains and investments, anything of the like, right? Assets that your family has, we need to see documentation of it, in addition to you reporting it on the EOP financial information form. So other eligibility documents, in addition to tax forms or verification of non-filing or notarized letters and W-2s, in the case of a parent who works but does not file taxes, these are other important documentation that proves and verifies your economic eligibility. So remember I mentioned someone who's if you're a ward of the court, if you are in foster care, if you are in court-approved legal guardianship, if you are an emancipated minor, if your custodial parent receives child support, if you receive public assistance in the form of temporary assistance, TANF, right? The family assistance or safety net assistance, if your family receives, your parents or your family receives Social Security or SSI benefits, if it's not reported on the tax forms, we need to see documentation of this income that is, because this is all income. This is all income that is in the household during a given year, in this case, 2019, and we need to see documentation of it. Some of you may be wondering, well, I receive SNAP. My family receives SNAP, formerly the food stamp program. I receive SNAP benefits. That's not considered public assistance that will make you automatically eligible economically for EOP the way temporary assistance like TANF, right, family assistance or safety nets assistance, cash assistance would. But it is income or support that we do want to see. So if you have the official verification form that you get from your social services agency that does show that you receive public assistance in the form of SNAP, we should see that. Yeah, I think that's helpful information that you can provide. It won't automatically make you economically eligible the way, once again, TANF or temporary assistance will, or other forms of public assistance like cash assistance and such of the like. But it is useful information for EOPs that you've applied to know, to give a sense of what support and income is entering the household. And of course, if in the end, I know there's a lot of different cases, if there are any unusual circumstances, just something that, any specific unusual circumstances, ideally, once again, we will try and assess alternatives if need be, but we want to see notarized letters for unusual circumstances. There are some cases where a student, an applicant to EOP, is currently, maybe wasn't historically, but is currently homeless, and they are living in a shelter, or another case where their counselor or advisor is able to provide a letter. So it's not notarized, but it is coming from the counselor or advisor or the shelter or such that does show that the student is currently residing at such and such place. And based on this current situation, that we're able as a committee, an admissions committee, the EOP review committee, to assess and verify your eligibility based on that. So these are all circumstances that can pop up. We are here to work with you. Do know that if you have questions, you make sure that you reach out to us. And I would assume the other schools that you've applied to for EOPs will say the same thing. And we will work with you. But it's really about meeting us halfway with that. So before we get to some questions, I do want to thank you to everybody who has already sent in questions and inquiries and concerns through our Q&A. Thank you very much. We're happy to get to those in a quick minute. Do know that there are one-to-one appointments that will be popping up as early as tomorrow, where you can schedule through visit.binghamton.edu, and you want to go to the admission counselor meetings. So when you go to that visit page, visit.binghamton.edu, there will be one-to-one chats and such and Zoom chats, but then you'll see something that says schedule a individual or personal meeting. And when you click on that, you'll be able to see virtual counselor meetings, one-to-one appointments they usually last anywhere between 15 and 20 minutes, where you can talk over Zoom with a admissions counselor. If you're finding trouble, with Zoom, you reach out to us, see if you want to schedule a phone appointment. We can work on that too. But I use this as an example because you will see my colleague, me and Byron's colleague, Alexander Ma, and myself, as you see Justin Brim down there, we have some EOP specific one-to-one appointments that are going to be popping up starting tomorrow and going on through this week. And there will be more that will be popping up throughout the next, for this week and the next, as we lead into the holidays, and then definitely post New Year. So right after the New Year, when everyone is back in school and work, we're going to be having more one-to-one appointments that you can schedule a 15 to 20-minute appointment to meet with us over Zoom to talk about your EOP application. If you haven't applied yet, that's fine too. Remember, January 15th is the deadline for first years, March 1st for transfers. You can actually meet in a one-to-one appointment with us, and we can go over the steps that you'll need to successfully submit an application to Binghamton for EOP, and kind of what you'll need after that. So don't be shy. This is the time to get your questions answered, get your concerns answered, and really get a sense on if you'll be a good candidate for EOP at Binghamton University. And then additional contacts. So maybe you're like, I don't need a one-to-one appointment. I know pretty much what I'm doing and are going to do, but I just need maybe one specific question answered, or I just need clarification on this. Whatever the case may be, if it's admissions related, make sure you email EOP admit, EOP ADMIT, no spaces, at binghamton.edu. If you want to talk to the EOP office specifically, now EOP is very busy. Remember, they have 600 students, including, like I said, 150 new students every year, every fall semester. So often, if it's something admissions related, please email the first one that you see there under the contact, eopadmit at bingham.edu. But if you have a question specifically for the EOP office, you can email them directly at EOP So no admit, but just EOP at binghamton.edu. But I do want to stress, they will, of course, they're more than willing to help. But oftentimes, because I'm and we have admissions liaisons in the admissions or undergrad admissions office, we tend to be the people that know most about the ins and outs of the admissions process. They know about it too in EOP. Remember, they're also dealing with their current students and for counseling and advising and such, and their other priorities. And if it's something that's admissions related, we would be best to answer that over in the undergrad admissions office. And of course, down the line, we can forward it to EOP if need be. But if it's something that's not admissions related that you do want to ask for EOP, that email is available for you to use. And once again, just plug in again, our EOP application and admission one-to-one appointments starting at visit.binghamton.edu. You can see really cool virtual tours while you're at it. And this session is going to be recorded. So in the very near future, maybe over the holidays or such, this will be available for you to view again and learn more about this process. Thank you very much, Byron. You've been plugging and putting in those links, answering questions. I really do appreciate your assistance. Sounds like there's been some really good discussion going on.
Absolutely.
So
and Justin, there were
right
just,
wow.
Yeah, there were a few there. I know it, for the sake of time, I don't know if you can maybe touch on a few of those that you may think are important to just give a quick answer to.
Absolutely. What if you're a family of 4 with an income of $50,000? Now, that's pretty close to $48,000. It is over. So that would generally mean that you would not be eligible. But in cases where it's cutting it really, really close, you may want to apply still for EOP and let the admissions committees make the determination. I mean, if, remember, we're talking about adjusted gross income mostly based on the tax forms. So maybe your total, maybe the initial income is over 50,000, but your AGI, your adjusted gross income, is lower. You want to make sure you get an idea of that. But if it is over the maximum, in most cases, I want to be very clear, in most cases, that will make you ineligible for EOP for that given year, and you would want to opt out of EOP and be considered in the general admissions process. There are some cases, worst case scenario, reach out to the individual office, like reach out to our admissions office and let us review a little further, maybe provide a little copy of your tax forms or such, and let us make the determination. We will let you know if you're eligible or not. Do you need to be recertified with your EOP eligibility for each academic year? The answer is no. Once you are admitted into EOP and enroll into a program with EOP, you can continue on for those services. Now, you do have to reapply for financial aid, for federal and state aid every single year. But when it comes to eligibility for EOP, if you were admitted through EOP, you can continue on for EOP. What if you apply on Common App? Can you apply for EOP on SUNY? Yes. So if you applied on Common App, the EOP option will be there. You can actually check off that I do want to be considered for EOP. You don't have to go and do the whole other SUNY admissions application if you've already done the Common application. You will still have to do, in the case of first-year students, you will still have to do the SUNY financial information form as a Common App, but not the full admissions application for SUNY. Is there one that you recommend more over the other between the New York State DREAM Act and the FAFSA? So most of the students that are going to submit the New York State DREAM Act are students who do not have a documented status in the United States. So now they are New York State residents. So I do want to be very clear. While this is not available in all states, I know California is one of them and some of the other states. New York State offers opportunities for students who are New York State residents, even if they're not documented federally, to be able to receive funding. And this is very important. This is awesome that New York State does this. So if it comes to, should I do the New York State DREAM Act or the FAFSA, in many cases, it's going to be an either or, not an and. Like, it's going to be like, if you do qualify for federal aid, if you are a citizen or a permanent resident of the United States, you can complete the FAFSA. If you are not, but you are a New York State resident, so no, right? federal status, not undocumented, but state status, resident of New York State, you can complete the New York State DREAM Act to be eligible for New York State funding, including EOP. Will senior GPA be considered? Generally not. I never rule out all cases. There may be some rare exceptions where we get a mid-year senior grades in, but for the most part, we do not ask and require mid-year senior grades. So it's mostly going to be your 9th through 11th grades as a cumulative average. Never rule out completely, but the large majority of students that apply for admission for EOP and general admission, Binghamton is going to be looking at your 9th through 11th cumulative average. If so, how high a GPA? No, like I said, it's hard to say. Like I said, the mid 50% is generally between 87 and 92 out of a 100-point scale for most EOP enrolls. That does not mean that if you have higher than that, don't apply. No, I think if you are not sure if you're going to qualify for general admissions, but you do know that you're economically eligible, apply EOP and let us make the determination. Will EOP applicants get notified of acceptance around the same time as non-EOP applicants? Minus early action, yes. So most students still apply through the regular or general decision process, the majority of our applicants, and that includes in that timeline students who apply EOP. So while we have an obligation to let early action general admissions applicants know, right? Early action applicants know of their decisions by January 15th, right? So mostly prior to the new year or right after the new year. This won't include EOP. This won't include regular decision applicants, but the majority of students apply regular decision, which can include EOP in that timeline anyway. So most EOP students are going to hear their decisions the same time that the majority of our regular decision students are going to do as well, or hear as well. Is the EOP specific essay the same thing as the Common App personal statement? No. So the EOP specific essay does ask for specific things related to EOP. It could be academic performance. Specifically, it could be, what do you also know about EOPs and why are you, in a sense, applying to one? So this is very important because your essay that you do for the Common App is going to be different from the personal statement or essay that you're going to complete for EOP, for applying to EOP. I submitted my application on the SUNY portal, but not the EOP application. I haven't gotten any emails from Binghamton. So does that mean my submitted application is on hold until I submit my EOP app? So you submitted your application through SUNY, yay, awesome. You applied to Binghamton, yay, awesome. And you did not do the EOP financial information form. You want to do that. You want to do that as soon as you can. Here's the reason. Binghamton, the way we work, you haven't heard from Binghamton yet, and that is by design. We kind of operate in a one-step, two-step process. We look at your academics first and your supplemental material, your academics and your essays and such, and then we look at your and we'll request your economic information, including your financial information form, your EOP essay, and your economic documents. That's the way we work. We operate in like a step one, step two process. Some other EOPs out there for SUNY might operate differently. They might say they want everything right away. So because if you've submitted the SUNY application, you're pretty confident, of course, that you're applying for EOP, you want to complete the EOP financial information form as soon as you can. You want to get your FAFSA or your New York State DREAM Act out as soon as you can. Those are things you want to do no matter what, whether it's Binghamton or another SUNY that you've applied to for EOP. You want to get that stuff done as soon as you can. So if you can do that in the next couple of weeks or so, that'd be awesome as we head into the holidays. If my parents have a joint checking account, what do I write for each one? I'd say split it in half. Split it in half. I would do that. When do I list Binghamton on our TAP application? Before the application deadline. It says, I'm a little confused with the fact that you can list only one school when applying to multiple schools. Here's what I recommend. And I'm going to type, in addition to answering it live, I'm going to type our financial aid office. You want to give them a call sometime this week. Their number is 607-777-2428. And I just sent that in addition to answering it live. So 607-777-2428, because the nuances of if you can only put one school on the TAP, you have multiple schools, that is best answered by one of our financial aid experts. But that is something that you want to get done ASAP, the state application, in addition to the FAFSA or the DREAM Act, of course. So looks like that's it. Thank you very much, Byron, once again, for your assistance. I want to thank everybody again who hung out past 3 o'clock. I really wanted to go in depth. So I know it pushed pretty much right at 3 o'clock. That's because I really wanted to be as thorough as I could to give you the nuances of EOP, what it is, why people apply to it, why you should apply to it if you haven't already, and what are the benefits and what is the information that you need to submit in order for us to assess your eligibility. So we want to thank you again for spending this time with us, this hour plus with us. We look forward to continuing the conversation. Remember, one-to-one appointments are available for all the counselors, especially related to EOP. And happiest of holidays. Hope you and your loved ones are safe, remain in good health, and then we close 2020 out and as best as we can with some happiness, some good cheer, and some EOP applications. So thank you, Byron, again. Thank you. Have a wonderful weekend, everyone. And we look forward to continuing conversation. Have a good one.